Hey guys, this is Charlie with 4BZ Truth, and we're back to do some contemplating of the cosmos here. It has been a long time since I've come back, but I just wanted to have a chat with my good buddy here, Alek. So we have a special guest today. The last live stream we did, I think, was with Alek and Robert Farrell, and we got into some deep talks or deep discussion, I should say. And ever since then, I've been kind of, life's been unraveling. I have a bunch of kids now, and we actually had conceived a baby, and then we lost our baby, which kind of took its toll a little bit. So I've kind of stepped away a little bit for a little while, but I figured it was time. Now, me and Alek, we've kind of on the side been chatting on the phone and, just having our talks about just the deep issues. It seems like I have a new friend. So anyways, I'm going to bring him on and we're going to kind of get chatting here about some of the deep issues. Hey, Alek.
Hey, Charlie.
So, I guess I'm titling this live stream, the keys to the kingdom. Now, it's just kind of a starting point for our discussion because a lot of what we've been talking about is kind of the deep, profound meaning to, just the complexity of everything. And there's a lot of underwritten, things that are in our realm, you might say, that are just kind of out there for the finding, the mysteries.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like there's a interesting theme to the Bible and things like that, it's like we're supposed to understand the mysteries in a lot of ways. So, as a preface, maybe for those who didn't see the first live stream with you, maybe explain a little bit about your background. I did mention that you're a movie producer. But I mean, the first time I ran into you was through this documentary, the Bible is a trilogy. And but go ahead and tell a little bit about yourself and for the audience and whatever. So
my name's Alek Gearhart. Obviously, I've been ever since I think I was 10 years old when I first decided I wanted to make movies. I was pretty into that movie Saving Private Ryan. Even though I was pretty young, my dad took me to that when I was in the second grade. And I remember I liked it so much that I don't even know if it's a good thing to say, but I peed my pants to stay to the end of that movie in the theater. Because have you seen that movie? I guess everyone has. But that last battle. And I've always been partial to that last battle, but I know people like the beginning battle the most in that movie because it's the Omaha Beach one. But the last one was like with the tanks and everything in the town. But maybe it's because I stayed for it. But
years since I've seen that.
Yeah. But there was a documentary on the VHS where it showed like Steven Spielberg when he was a kid making movies, and it showed like him use some dirt and a plywood board and a rock, and he like jumped on it and made an explosion. Then ever since then, I've been making films just like as a hobby and kind of doing like imitation movies. Like when Lord of the Rings came out, I was making Lord of the Rings ripoffs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I started to get into like, Tarantino and making crime movies like with pop culture references I didn't even understand, that kind of stuff. And then later I just kept staying with it, and I did some time in the military and then some mostly like a Forest Service firefighting job. And
wait, what branch were you in?
It's the Army National Guard, so like infantry or whatever. But I only ever went to like Kosovo, like basically tourism.
Gotcha.
And then, but
you were just 4 years in that, or
I did 6.
6 years.
Yeah, 6 years, but the time overseas it was only like 9 months, and then mostly just like 2 weeks or 2 weeks a year, and then every month. But yeah, I guess as far as like spiritually or whatever, like my upbringing would be the Calvary Chapel movement, probably specifically. Harvest Riverside, which was Greg Laurie.
Oh, really? Greg Laurie, yeah.
Yeah. So I mean,
I got baptized by Paul Smith, which is brother of Chuck Smith.
Okay. Yeah. And my knowledge of that is like it's to me. My view of that is basically I went to a movie theater and not knocking it, but like I didn't really know anyone there. But there's that. It's, I was pretty young when we were going there, but that was kind of the theology I stayed with mostly. And I think I didn't really know much about Christianity beyond that for a long time. So and then I went to I learned more about it. A big deal was when that movie Passion of the Christ came out. I kind of learned some more. Learned it was an effective movie for me. And then as I got older, it was only once I started, I guess, dating my wife, and her family was more evangelical. And then her grandparents were Catholic, so then I saw a difference, and then people talking, kind of going at each other, not terribly, but different opinions about different things. Mm-hmm. And then eventually a lot of the stuff with ISIS and all that stuff was going on, and it made me very curious about Orthodox Church and stuff like that, and then even Catholic. And I thought I think retrospect, I'm glad, because from there I thought something was off, but back then I thought in retrospect.
Did you think are you suggesting that it was staged or?
No, I mean, I guess I would say my current Christianity, I thought maybe because a lot of those Christians that were beheaded seemed to be Orthodox, or so I was I kind of, that's why I'm saying it's not the most mature way.
Times discussion with
those who so I was getting into the Islamic Antichrist idea, which you could plug that in, but I'm kind of I'm not 100% getting away from it, because I know that's an element. But I would say how I was looking at it was a little more for basically Calvary Chapel told me all this stuff, and then I found that there's other information about that kind of leans more to something like Islam or something, and so I was okay, maybe there's more to learn, because there's one verse that got me at least to get out of the paradigm of thinking, because Calvary Chapel has a big end times, basically the Left Behind series type of idea. So a big thing with that was Antichrist, and I have it on my YouTube. If you look, it's called The Road to Apocalypse, but it's basically R-rated Left Behind movie. It's the same story, just with kids that curse, to make it edgy. But it's the Antichrist and stuff. But they always mentioned, and I even talked to the pastor Jeff Lazine. I think he's was the second pastor at the time, and he wrote a book about it. And I used that kind of book and Greg Laurie as bullet points just to make that. So I was familiar with that way of thinking. But one verse that says something that they use, but he specifically skipped the verse in the book, and it was that he would have a God, a fortress, a God that his fathers did not know. So it's just a little thing, but it made it sound like the Antichrist had a God, as opposed to him. They said he didn't. He would be some atheist type thing. It's a minor thing. I wouldn't even care about it anymore, but it just got me thinking oh, what else don't I know? But I think that was the first time I ever had that experience. I don't even think they're doing it intentionally. I just think they don't see that it goes against what they're saying about that particular thing. So I think that's what got me kind of going another way. And I was trying to go towards maybe Orthodoxy. And I even met with some of the a priest there, but he mentioned he pointed up to a mural and said, as long as you're seeking, he specifically said Christ isn't just in the Orthodox Church, but if you're seeking him, and he pointed to a mural of Christ on the ceiling, then you're doing the right thing. Which I thought was, in retrospect, pretty cool that he would say that. But then later, all the COVID stuff happened, and I was still into the end times thing, especially with that. And I started.
I do want to touch on this a little bit, because there's two facets to this. There's you have the side where it's the physical realm, and the physical fulfillment of these things, but then how much could it be related to the the spiritual, or I guess in some ways the parallels, I guess, not necessarily.
And I think because that's where I'm at now. I guess that would be the journey because eventually I moved from California to here, and I started actually having
here is
Pennsylvania. I started having, initially I was in the Forest Service, and so it was a federal job, so you saw a lot of the policies about I don't know if you could say it now, but so that
you don't have to.
The vaccine or whatever, but
I get in trouble because it's my channel.
But I think it's okay to say that now. I think the CDC anyway, but but anyways, that was all compounding with me thinking end times, and then but I was also it was 2021 when I think I had watched like Robert's videos before about Enoch years before, but something happened where I think I read the Wisdom of Solomon because I was looking for an answer for the end time stuff. But I went to the Wisdom of Solomon and I found my answer for something, but I forgot that it wasn't script. It supposedly wasn't scripture. And then from there, I was like, oh, this actually works. Like I read it as scripture. And so from there, I just started reading all these other ones. And I kind of went back to some of Robert Farrell, who does the Apocrypha 1970 stuff. And I somehow or another, I kept like looking at that, but it was still with that lens of physical flesh and blood understanding of end times kind of stuff. So I was just looking for more Islamic Antichrist stuff in those like Enoch and stuff, which you could kind of find it. But then when I came out here, it took a little while, but one day it just hit when I was reading the Gospel of Philip, and then it just completely changed me to this. And now it's a lot more peaceful, which is the keys.
Yeah. I mean, just to kind of, you know, and a lot of people that listen to my channel know about my position, but at the same time, it's like I've been in a little bit of an evolution lately, just because in a lot of ways, just to kind of bring people up to speed from my perspective, I guess, is I've had several people that I was close to completely leave Christianity.
Okay.
So, and you know, one of my better friends, I guess you could say, I met when he actually was introduced to me from another coworker. Okay. And he said, "This is Charlie. He's a flat earther." That's what he said. Oh, yeah. I'm like, great. This guy's going to have a great impression of me now. But the funny thing is, you know, this guy took a liking to me because he thought anybody that even dabbles into that way, you know, research or whatever, must be an interesting guy. So he ended up just like studying me in some ways. But then he was, at the same time, he was like researching like Satanism and things like that, trying to understand the perspective. Yeah, if it really has anything to do with an actual Satan, or if it was, you know, hey, my buddy from Founded Earth Brothers is here. It must be Josh. Hey, Josh. But anyways, so yeah, and then plus, you know, not just the people that have left Christianity, but I really got into near-death experiences and really tried to unpack that stuff and try to understand the fullness of the implications to the spiritual and to the afterlife and religion and understanding and belief and things like that. So I felt like that would have been some sort of lens or some sort of key, you might say, that helps you understand reality better. Because, well, from one angle, you're going to say, oh, well, you have to believe in that. I mean, that's like you have to trust that these are reliable sources, I guess. Yeah. But then I started just like listening and reading and trying to understand hundreds of perspectives, and then I started noticing patterns. So the patterns are kind of what really drew me in to, I guess you could say, a trust in near-death experiences. Yeah. And the out-of-body experiences and the you know, ability to recount what happened to their body and things like that when they're out of body. Yeah. Because they could see, you know, what was happening to them, and you know, the paramedics that came after they were already, like, you know, out of it or whatever. Mm-hmm. So anyways, all that to say, there was a lot of holes in that perspective, and it started pushing me toward spiritualism more than, you know, religion. It was in a lot of ways, it was trying to push me into just, you know, being like a, you know, I don't know, like I found this guy on Facebook that I forgot his name on there. I think it's Soul Guide or something like that. But he talks about like New Age stuff like none other. But it all stemmed from him having a near-death experience. So there's so many people out there like that.
Yeah.
So like the Jesus experience is not as prevalent as you might think. So it bothered me a lot. I started like feeling like, man. And then I started thinking like when I talked to Howard Storm, which is before we came on, we were kind of discussing like his near-death experience, but he got me thinking about how there's a lot of symbolism in near-death experiences, or there's like you know, you might have an experience, but it might be your experience for a reason. It might not be other people's experience. So like it's some sort of experience that's created for you when you die, and which kind of throws me off a little bit too, because I'm like, it seems like there's so many different perspectives on that. So
like a dream, but a more vivid, like
yeah,
almost, yeah.
it does sound like a dream. But yeah, the dreams are incoherent in most cases. But sometimes you can get a little bit of patterns of reality in dreams, or maybe just a reenactment of your experiences or something. And but I kind of wondered the same about near-death experiences. You're having a reenactment of your experiences, because a lot of people, you could be Muslim or you could be Hindu or whatever. You can have reincarnation. You can have a reincarnated experience while you're having a near-death experience. So you can live many lives and come back to this body. And I've heard so many different angles on this. So it felt so convoluted. And I was like, you know what? I got to step back a little bit, because I feel like I'm gravitating toward confusion more than I am anything else. But in the meantime, I'm sitting here thinking about all this stuff all the time. And I feel like I'm getting a little more clarity now. And after talking to you and Robert and even Josh from Founded Earth Brothers, all you guys have kind of caused me to consider a lot of things that I might not have considered. And so anyways, sorry to take the floor.
No, it's good. Yeah.
But I'm just trying to see if we have kind of a eye to eye in some ways on kind of where we're coming from.
Yeah.
And yeah, so go ahead, and if you have any thoughts.
Yeah, I would think that kind of fits into to this, because I guess my experience, because like I shared, is probably more of a skeptical, because I still think like something like Calvary Chapel, or because it has a very skeptical nature to it, like I guess a Baptist view, like you probably wouldn't want to tell somebody about your dreams in that movement, or it wouldn't be considered reliable because it's not like scripture or whatever, but people would still share them, I imagine. And I never really had dreams. Like I have some that I remembered, here and there, like I just a few, but then I did in 2020 when I started reading. I think I'm not going to say it's just coincidence, but maybe it's just because I was reading so much, I was remembering the dreams more, because I notice when I read, I remember more. Maybe it's a different side of your working, your brain or something. But I did start to have dreams, and I was interpreting it more like that end times kind of thing. But yeah. I did have one that I know, because I wrote them down, because I knew there's something, I was remembering them. It was in 2021, I think, mainly. And I did have one that specifically that came true, and it involved this move to this place. Very specific, but it would be more like, I don't need to share it just because I don't think it probably doesn't matter, but it was, there's like a red train here, and I saw that red train in the dream, and it involved my grandma, but I didn't know about that. And then I remember when I quit my job and just said, all right, let's go on a vacation to go see. We went across the country. It was my wife's idea, actually. And when we came here, my grandma fulfilled the directly. There's some other stuff that I won't mention, but
and like deja vu or something.
The only reason I mention it is because to me it showed it was a little more. It was pre. If I would have known, it was pre. It was like something future. It's a minor. It's just for me, but like there's a couple things in there, and it was specifically about, like I said, there's a lot of rooms and stuff, and we basically what happened with my grandma. Basically, I inherited a house without even everything, like just because I quit, and then and all of a sudden she's mentioned it when we came out here. But anyway, it was like but that was like, it's a small thing, but it just showed me like there's definitely something that I don't think it kind of fits with maybe near death, but I guess that would fit with the idea that there is.
It does. In fact, that's one of the patterns, I think, because
Yeah.
um, the words, I don't even know if I'm saying the word right. Synchronicity. Never
Yeah.
mind. So there. Okay, so there's patterns in reality where you have like things just kind of sharing reality
Yeah.
uh, and having some sort of dependency on each other. So like I always talk about this, like it all goes back to the lightning when it hit the ocean and the soil, and it created nitrogen, and then all this other stuff. It just kind of. I'm not one who believes in evolution as it's taught in school, but I do believe that there's some sort of symbiosis. I don't even know if I'm saying the word symbiosis.
Even that as a parable works too, because like lightning is like the word, but
Lightning fell from heaven. It was Barack Obama.
right?
Do you ever hear that one?
I've heard some things like that.
Yeah, and it's funny too. Sorry, this is a little rabbit trail, but you know how that Obama's kind of been in the spotlight lately.
Yeah.
But I remember like always talking about Obama in regards to end times.
Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah.
And I actually remember like his slogan was "Yes, we can. Yes, we can." And then everybody was like freaking out because if you say "Yes, we can" backwards, it says "Thank you, Satan."
Oh.
And I'm like, nah. So I actually downloaded a recording app, and then I reversed it, and yes, it does say that.
Oh, really?
It's weird and interesting, and my wife actually got scared from it, and
yeah, I wouldn't
want me to do it anymore.
Yeah, there's stuff like that. Yeah. With I think with the keys, like at least it seems like I would say like sometimes I think it's helpful because for me it's helpful because I know well, I guess it seems like we both were in the experience the end times mindset, like, and it's not to say it's not true because the stuff is pretty bad, like all that, like all the stuff we experienced in COVID, like, and all, the different things. It's true, but it seems like there's this saying in the Gospel of Thomas where it says, "Be passersby," and sometimes I feel like I've become that a little bit more as far as like, I mean, with like politics and stuff and like things like that for myself. Like it's not for everyone to do, I guess, but I kind of feel like if I could just pass by it, like, or just observe it, like what everyone's saying, and then see if there's like maybe like a pattern or something to, because
so what comes to my mind, don't be in, or be in the world, but not of the world.
Yeah. Like if like, if like another one, the Gospel of Thomas says the kingdom of the Father is spread out, yet men do not see it. Like if there was a way to see it and you could see it, but many people don't, and it seems like it's hard to get them to see something positive when it looks so bad. But maybe it's almost like the Wizard of Oz, how like they wanted these items like a heart, the shoes, or to go home, and then there's a couple things, the courage, but then at the end the guy just says you already have them, you just didn't realize it. Like I think there's some of that. There's some of that going on with the kingdom, anyways. I'm not saying like there won't be something cataclysmic. It seems like there's going to be negative things, but it seems like if we keep our, I guess, eyes on heaven, maybe we can almost pass through it like it was nothing.
Oh man, we're about to enter into the depths of this. So kingdom, heaven, and all this, so the many onion layers of this reality, I actually, that kind of coincides with a lot of the near-death experiences that I've heard too, is that heaven is not removed, it's actually here in us. So if you peel back the physical layer and to expose the spiritual, you'll actually see that we are in heaven, but we're wearing the facade of the earth, and which there's a lot to there is a facade of the earth, by the way. It's no, that's beside the point. I don't want to get into that, but I do feel like there's something, to the heaven. So like the way the Bible describes heaven, I've talked about this many times on my channel, but I just don't know how well people have taken this. But New Jerusalem is actually this figurative, building or whatever that descends from heaven. Heaven being the stars or the space or whatever.
Yeah, the bright.
And, yeah. So, but it comes down to the earth. But if you actually go inside the New Jerusalem, you'll see the pearly gates and the streets of gold and things like that. So that's the way people always describe heaven. I'm going to dance on the streets of gold.
Yeah.
Yeah. We will dance on the streets that are gold. And I don't know if you ever heard that song, but
it's Yellow Brick Road. I don't know.
Well, kind of. I mean, some ways. Maybe there's a tie in there too.
I think it's probably pretty obvious. I haven't looked at it recently, but hey, the trees, never mind. Somebody.
Oh my gosh!
Somebody mentioned something that the trees and the black.
Oh yeah. Okay, so he sent me a video where these guys were talking about, depending on your perspective, this could have something to do with this whole thing about perspective. Like you could be like in Africa and famine and pestilence and starvation and all this, and you're still positively out. You have a positive outlook on life, and in some ways, I feel like that ties into, when you're Americanized, you're probably gonna have first world problems, as they say, and so a lot of it has to do with perspective. But in regards to what we were talking about with the tree, these guys that were like Bible scholars were talking about how the tree of life and the tree of knowledge were actually the same tree, but that you were basically manipulating what the tree was from your own perspective, ultimately. Or is that how you took it?
I don't.
Maybe not manipulating, but go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't. I'm not 100% if I would combine those two elements with that particular story, but like, I'm sure you could take that into it, like, because I know like how I would look at the tree. I know like I think Robert had he had it on his Facebook about something you posted today, but about like the parabolic meaning of all that. But like, definitely, I would say like it seems like there are two, but maybe you are, maybe it is true. Like you could kind of see like maybe there really is one, but like you could see the one in both. But like, so there's a tree of life, which is probably like the Christ level, the truth, but we tend to choose the tree of knowledge of good and evil. So we choose the law, we choose the regulation, we choose the subjugation.
It's like the heart of stone kind of
thing. You're choosing that. So it does seem like they're kind of distinct, but I guess, but even within that tree of the knowledge of good and evil, all those things, if you see them like, the laws, if you see them as parables, like Barnabas talks about in that epistle, or like Hebrews talks about, then you could kind of overcome it. Like basically, how Jesus says, I came to fulfill the law, not to destroy it. He could fulfill the law because he's fulfilling the parables of the law. Like it's not like he's coming to, because a lot of people do take that like, see, we got to keep doing all this, like the different various laws. Like that's why you have a lot of Hebrew Israelite kind of movements. But he could overcome it by knowing the true meaning of it, like, and explaining it like he does. But so in a way, yeah, there's almost one tree. I guess the one tree is the truth, but
yeah, I mean, I always see that kind of contrasting in the Bible is, like when Jesus was talking to the Pharisees or explaining who the Pharisees were, compared to what you should be, and talking about the parables of the, and then the Beatitudes and like, going back to the heart, the heart of stone versus the heart of flesh. And it talks a lot about that in the Bible.
Yeah.
And I think that in a lot of ways, people have missed that boat, you might say.
Yeah.
I think that a lot of people are still stuck in the mind, I always bring up my little guy that, my little logo that has the 4BZ truth brain coming out of this little guy's head. Well, there's little gears in there kind of turning. And that's kind of the idea is to, open your mind, and then your brain has gears turning in it. But in the beginning when I kind of ran my intro, it has the little guy where his head pops open and then the brain flies out. In some ways, I feel like that's what happens when you're willing to open your mind. You might your brain will fall out.
Well, yeah, I think that's kind of like the meaning of like becoming, entering, little children entering the kingdom. You must be like a child. It almost seems like basically being willing to learn again, because like if you do like a Pharisee, or that idea of that, the parable that like someone who has the hardened fixed testament, but you can't learn anymore because you could, if this is true, then even if God wanted to tell you something, it might be hard, because it's not going to get through to you if you're stuck, like someone can't. Which, I mean, we've all been in that situation for sure. And I almost think it's miraculous for myself, like how it happened, but like I know it happens a lot for people too. Like it seems like more people today are able to. I mean, I think it's more because they're being hurt by the doctrines, or it's not like it doesn't seem true anymore.
Yeah. So in some ways, you had a born again experience.
Yeah, with this, I wouldn't even say it's like I'm trying to like divorce it from any type of like anything special, because I think like once like with these keys or whatever, I feel like you can explain it to anybody, and since like I extrapolate it to like art and stuff, I think it's almost like some people talk about like whatever the future of however because it talks about in the end like he comes with 10,000s of his holy ones or whatever, and there might be a way to interpret that, or like people that just maybe it's just like they get they just get the information or whatever, and then they give it to people, and that kind of judges the doctrine or something. Something like that, like but to demystify it where there's no authority in it or something. Like it's just like, hey, I want to see this, and then you see it and you're like, oh, that's what it was. Something like that. Oh, I don't have to worry about this.
I've thought a lot about this, like, because I've met this guy that's like a competitor in my business field. And I'm like, hey, I saw his truck, and it's his business name is Hyperclean. And my business is called Dryer on Fire. And now he does dryer vent cleaning and air duct cleaning just like I do. But I actually walked up to him and I'm like, hey, are you the owner of Hyperclean? He's like, yeah. And I was like, hey, I'm Charlie. I have the business Dryer on Fire. And he's like, oh, I know you. I know who. I've seen your business around or whatever. And we started talking. And then we kind of evolved into we were sitting there talking for like an hour and a half, 2 hours almost. And basically, we started talking about like end times and, Christianity and all kinds of different stuff. And he was insisting that, there's like a pre-trib rapture. You have to get ready. His return is imminent. And, I've, in a lot of ways, I feel like that ship has sailed for me. The whole concept of leaving the earth, you know what I'm saying? But then I started thinking like, in Matthew 24, where it says that Jesus will come in the clouds and we'll meet him in heaven or whatever. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about, but
but then there's
so that's one of those things where they call that the return of Christ. Now
even the cloud, like I guess the parable key, like the cloud of witnesses. I know Apocryphal 1970 mentions that, and that makes sense because it's like, I mean, because that kind of demystifies it. Like if that's true, I tend to think it's a possibility for sure. Because it does. Another way, like you were talking about the bride, or sorry, you were talking about the New Jerusalem, and then I think within it says it mentions that's the bride somewhere in that chapter. I think it's like 20 or something in Revelation. So that means it's people. I think like 100%. I would have never thought of that, but like it I mean that like the it seems like it's coming from heaven into someone, like someone's the bride, which is the church, I guess.
The word spirit, I think that a lot of people personify it, but it's really just like an approach or understanding of things.
It seems to be like like when somebody tells you a story and it's like you got the basic story of whatever happens, and then like, then they say, what's the true spirit of what this means? Like, what is he trying to say? I want like, you think it's like something like that?
It's like a lens. It's
like true meaning.
Yeah. So that's just the whole theme. I mean, if I'm going to try to drive something home on this, is I feel like the Bible's ultimate theme is to try to drive home the concept of stop thinking like a Pharisee, start thinking like, Christ, in the sense that, we're going to passionately and just desire to be in the Father, of the Father, and and the whole, so sometimes when I start thinking like this, I wonder if it takes away from the reality of Jesus dying on the cross and us being, I guess, quote unquote, saved. Like there's some sort of
I think there's an explanation for that. I actually have it on here, or somewhat that combines both. But
you took a little bit of notes and had some scriptures and stuff, right?
Yeah. There's one. Have you read the Acts of John, where it mentions like?
I don't know that I have actually.
There's a particular part that like, to me, it seals the deal, because like my ultimate goal now is to probably get that book spread as widely as possible, just because of this particular, because it basically to me it fully explains why John was able to call Jesus the Word because it's supposed to be another account from him. But it does have, because it mentions because I don't think it takes away from that, because I think collectively, like, it seems like that is still important for someone to grasp, like say, how we started out in our faith. That's both of us are from the Calvary Chapel movement, so we're both our first thing we knew is like, okay, he died for me, so I'm gonna believe in him and what he did, and now I'm a Christian, basically. Because that's basically like, that's the beginning. That's like you're still interfacing with the same God, but like it seems like this is like, okay, the more you mature, I guess, whatever, the more real it becomes, the more is explained, and then I guess at the end of that, you just know what it really means. Like, even baptism isn't like, it starts out, okay, an outward profession of faith, I'm being dunked in the water, but then the more you learn about it, like, the more you're able to, like, I think it's just the more it makes sense, like, why someone would do that, like, if you knew the meaning of it. So I'd say, but I know it does. It's almost like, because even talking to the Mormon guys, because I was mentioning this, because that was something they were mentioning the same thing, like the idea that, well, if somebody can't understand it, what's the point? But in my opinion, we've been doing the other thing for 2,000 years. It seems like we have that, we can always go back to that, but we need this too.
Can I hammer on something just a little bit? And it has everything to do with what you're talking about.
Okay.
It's not about works, but it's a gift of God. So, the Mormons often will revert back to the works side of things. So I think there's a contrast with the works part of it too, because if you look at it in terms of like the Pharisees, works done from the slate of the stone tablets, the stone heart, is the inauthentic. But if you are doing works from the heart of flesh and basically the authentic, that's the contrast. So if it says it's not about works, but I think that what it's saying is that your works are,
I think in order to, sorry, am I cutting you off? If you want to keep going.
No, I think that kind of sums it up.
Yeah, I think because Jesus could talk in a parabolic way, where like he could tell someone something, and then like one guy could fully like, if he says if he told someone to fast or something, And then somebody would be like, see, we got to fast. But if it's Jesus talking, he's probably, if it's a parable, he means a true fast, which would be like, because the prophets talk about fasting as not even related to food, just like, I forgot what it was, but it sounds like the golden rule almost, like to break every bond.
Teach that to my kids right now.
Yeah. So like basically like a true fast has nothing to do with food. It's more like, I'm probably butchering it, but just the concepts here is to treat your don't subjugate anybody, like fast from being a jerk, fast from being subjugating people, like the Pharisees or something about subjugating them under religion, or you could take it another way too. But like, so like when he says something like, but he says it in two ways, and you could easily see why someone would take it the other way, back to like something like the Pharisees. And maybe since we're now probably in the millennium or whatever, but we could see, it seems like that's used to see what was true all along, like, because you could see, like, I guess since the real meaning, you could see how someone took it to a false meaning. It's almost like a decoder, I guess. Like, since sorry, go ahead.
So wait, so you were talking about when the Mormons were there, they're like, what's the point if you don't understand the mysteries or something?
Yeah, and I think, they said, well, there's a guy who comes every time. They're cool guys, but like, you're just interfacing with probably some type of some type of spreadsheet of how to certain apologetic.
Oh, man, I've had conversations. In fact, in Boise, Idaho, where I live, we probably have, like, in the state of Idaho, probably the highest Mormon concentration per capita of any state. I mean, Utah might be up there too, but I'm just saying that. But Idaho is like, Eastern Idaho is like almost 90% Mormon, probably.
Yeah.
But I've sat down for dinner with Mormons. Like, they came in to my house and I invited them in for dinner. Yeah. They always want to help. They always want to do stuff to help.
Nice guys. Yeah. I like them. It's just the doctrine. Like, it's just like, because I was kind of, it's just hard. Like, it's even like regular. The same problems I have with them is the same problems I probably have with evangelical Christianity. Obviously, there's some more differences, but it's just like everything being kept in a box, and even though there might like sometimes they might even know there's like a higher meaning to something, but it's almost like there's this rule, like, okay, we know there's a bigger meaning to this, but we don't. It's pointless to tell someone.
I think that they are concerned about authoritative types things as well. Like, they'll yield the authority to the
prophet and
the prophet or the president or whoever.
That's like an obvious error, but I think people do it to themselves even outside of it. Like we even being beholden to like something like the end times theology of like Calvary Chapel. Not to like bash on them, but like it's so strong there that you would never be able to even consider something else without seeming like it's total trash. but the something else might actually be something to consider. You might need it, to know what it means.
By the way, I not the rabbit trail, but did you see the movie that came out recently from Greg Laurie? And
I've looked up a lot of clips and seen some commentary. It's not my type of thing, but I have. Did you see it? The Jesus Revolution?
Not yet, but I kind of want to see it.
Yeah. I heard it was pretty well done.
I feel like I have a connection to that,
Yeah.
Because I never went to like Calvary Chapel Costa Mesa or anything, but I went to Calvary Chapel Victorville, where Paul Smith was the pastor.
Yeah.
And have you been to Victorville or through Victorville?
Yeah, I've been there. Made a lot of stuff. I have some friends up there and stuff. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, in Greg Laurie, I went to the Summer Harvest several times.
Crusades.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then Chuck Smith actually was pretty involved in our church. Like, we had little outings and stuff, and went on his yacht. Things like that. But I never actually met Greg Laurie, but Chuck Missler was a guy that actually went to Calvary Chapel, Costa Mesa. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if you ever followed Chuck Missler, but he was somebody I really loved listening to Chuck Missler. He died a few years back, but he was real smart, studied on a lot of this deep stuff, I guess.
Yeah.
But again, he did branch out from Calvary Chapel, so
Yeah.
not to sell that concept short, but
Yeah.
I just feel like we came out of that in a bottle, I guess. We didn't really have the ability to venture outside of our realm until something broke, I guess.
Yeah, and I think that's probably what's collectively happening now. Is like, as bad as everything looks, it seems like, because like people are really bummed about the church attendance going down, but like, if there is something God wants us to find and it's not being found there, and what I mean by that is if you're just stuck with, if He wants to share a little bit more, if it takes going out and then bringing it back, I think that's because I think go ahead.
Sorry, I got to say something about defiling. When the pig was sacrificed on the altar of the temple, that was the abomination of desolation. Now there was another abomination of desolation that's going to happen in the end, and I kind of wonder if the abomination of desolation was what sent us into the hills, so to speak. So basically, we went away from the Orthodox faith or whatever.
Yeah.
And we ended up going into the hills. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I think it's probably something, that's interesting. I haven't done the keys on that yet, but that's a good thing. No, yeah, keep going.
Yeah. So I just wonder, because we're talking a lot about this, symbolism.
You know what? I'm sure the Maccabees one, because that was in Maccabees, right? With the actual one. I'm sure that's it
might be in Maccabees. Honestly, I have a Catholic Bible, but I don't.
Yeah, I think it's in. I haven't done it yet, but if I went in there, I bet that pig on the altar is the key.
That is in Maccabees. That's right.
Because that pig is, the swine, the pearls before swine. So you put basically that ideology onto the altar metaphor. Like that becomes the
altar is your heart. Or your will.
So like that becomes your heart of a pig, or something like that. That makes sense. Like that could work.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, the heart of a pig is the heart of flesh.
Yeah, which is the negative, concept.
Which is weird because they almost compare flesh to being pure, but they also consider,
I think
being, carnal, I guess.
There's one, like the flesh of, like when Jesus mentions his flesh and blood in like John 6, like eating it, but the flesh of the word, I guess, is positive, but maybe the flesh and blood is the material. Yeah, I think there's like multiple. It's like like a lion. There's a key for Christ in that, but there's also a key for the devil. There's like dual.
In some way, I have friends that left Christianity and they'll use that as like some sort of contradiction or something. But you just have to dig a little deeper to get a fuller understanding.
There must always be a positive, like, I mean, maybe something like pig is probably a hard one to find a positive, like, but like a lot of them are like dual, like birds, could be angelic, or demonic, like metaphorically. But yeah, I guess you just have to just ask God, I get, like, seek, knocks, ask, or just but I mean, just like keep studying to figure it out. But yeah, like that makes a lot of sense what you're saying. I think that's something that already happened for sure. The abomination, from what you're saying.
Well, yeah, I kind of wonder if it's just kind of a process, something that's happening. And I think that tribulation, because I talked a lot about tribulation. Mm-hmm. There's a deeper meaning to that. So, tribulum, or the Latin word tribulum, is sifting of wheat. Is what it's basically when they're in the harvest time. They're shifting the wheat to where the chaff will fall off, right?
Yeah.
And so when that separation is happening, and there's a lot of symbolism here, that the reason for the hard times, or the reason for the tribulation, is so that we could actually be purified or become deeper rooted in this way of looking at it, I guess.
No, yeah, I think it's true. And sometimes I think about all the bad too. Like, well, I think it might be good to go over the keys eventually, so we have like a reference point to go over it, because it kind of helps to know what happened.
That's kind of what we're trying to address here. But you do a breakdown.
Let me do I'll just do a breakdown of like the symbolic timeline of. I don't even know if it is necessary that this is like literally how time works, but at least for like the stories and all the Bible, like for it to work, to find the keys, this definitely works for how the Bible's timeline or whatever. But let me see if I can. I'll just put it on the screen, but I don't even know if we'll be able to see it. But let me see. It's just the epistle.
So a little presentation to kind of give an idea of where we're coming from.
So let me present, and then share screen. And then I'm going to, Epistle of Barnabas, just to read from where we're getting this whole idea of can you see this epistle here?
Yeah. I don't know. We're up. Go ahead.
Okay, so it says, this is Barnabas, the apostle, apparently, who wrote this. But he's talking about a lot about different things in the Old Testament, like that are parables. So like the food laws are just parables of, you don't want to eat when you don't want to eat pork, it's talking about you don't want to cast your pearls before swine. So basically that, but then he gets into the Sabbath, and it says right here, he says in another place, if my sons keep the Sabbath, then will I cause my mercy to rest upon them. The Sabbath is mentioned at the beginning of creation thus, and God made in 6 days the work of his hands, and made an end on the seventh day, and rested on it, and sanctified it. Attend, my children, to this meaning of the expression. He finished in 6 days. This implies that the Lord will finish all things in 6,000 years, for a day to him is as 1,000 years, and he himself testifies, saying, behold, today will be as 1,000 years. Therefore, children, in 6 days, that is in 6,000 years, all things will be finished, and he rested on the seventh day. So I'll stop sharing, but just to give us some points as where this cool idea of this coming from. So there's a couple keys right there. Is the Sabbath is the millennium, and then a day is as 1,000 years. So like in the symbolic time, when you talk about a day, we're talking about a millennium potentially, in the keys,
that actually has been pretty well established from my perspective. I think that like my dad and my brother actually both are Messianic Jews, I guess you could say, and they talk a lot about this kind of symbolism, and that's kind of where I learned the day is like 1,000 years, and 1,000 years is a day. And the Sabbath millennium is actually an actual event, 1,000-year reign. Now, one might argue that the 1,000-year reign is Christ in us or something,
I think it might be, because it later in there it mentions like the eighth day is when we take we put off the flesh, and in the parable Jesus was resurrected on the eighth day, and then also like that's when Isaac's flesh was cut off on the eighth day. In the eight is like taking off the flesh, so there might actually be a literal fulfillment, like resurrection but it seems like the millennium is more like something about the restoration of the word, the higher the meaning.
Yeah, so speaking from my Calvary Chapel background, they always talk about being in our glorified bodies once we become purified or whatever, and or even dead. So when we die and we're resurrected in our glorified bodies, I kind of wonder how much of that is symbolism.
I mean, it does seem like I'm definitely where you're at right now with that, but I just don't want to. I don't want to say there's not like
that experience is actually. I mean, you're gonna have glorified bodies. I'm just saying.
I mean that could be too, and like because even the resurrection, like it seems like a symbol too. Like not it really happened, but it would be like something like I know there's one called the Treatise on the Resurrection, was supposedly Gnostic or whatever, but it directly says something like you must put on the resurrection, but basically like. Because Jesus is essentially putting on spirit at that, like so he in the parable it's like the word coming alive spiritually, but he died because I think Paul mentions that where I think it's Colossians, maybe it's not, but like Christ died to the elemental things of the world, and we rise, so we must rise to where he is on the right hand of the Father. So it's almost like stop looking at just the earthly level understanding and start looking there. in that parable, you know. But that, you know,
it's so funny. Like when
yeah.
people probably are listening to us talk about this stuff, they're gonna get offended.
But that's Paul, you know. You
Well,
know?
it's just
Yeah.
interesting
Yeah.
that we had to go through a sifting of wheat in some ways,
Yeah.
because or even the refinement in the fire, because that's another way of becoming pure gold is
Yeah.
another form of tribulation. So they always, I mean, the parables, Jesus always talked about, all the symbolism of how we purify ourselves.
Yeah.
Um, but one thing I do want to say is that I don't think that it's just about understanding. It's about application. And that's where I struggle a little bit, because I don't really know how well I do the application,
That's what I was yeah, because I mean, it does seem like the most important to me. It seems like God's, even in this stuff, to know, like, I think this is more like to get you to know that, like, basically to know God, like, oh, like gravity, but
Mhm.
but that also includes the love of God. And from my experience, it seems like that grace element uh is actually not to like is actually, as happy as it might sound, is actually how you see that, like to see that God loves you, and stuff like that. And or is like, how in John it talks about, my desire is for them to see you and me and you and them and us, as sons and stuff. Like, to know that that's how God wants us to see ourselves, but also how He wants us to treat others.
Yeah.
I can't see any negative there, but I could see a negative if you're like, okay, here's the keys. How do I control people, with it, you know? But it seems like, but you're right. I think that the ultimate goal does seem to be to get people to treat each other like, just to do the two commandments, love
Yeah.
Him, and
So
yeah,
like this, you know, the, oh my gosh, I just thought about, the lion and the lamb will lie down together or whatever.
yeah,
It's
hmm
not that. I interviewed Brian Stabley, who's
hmm
like a huge proponent of the what do they call it, the something effect. Why can't I think of it? The president from South Africa, what's his name?
yeah,
Mandela effect. He was going off about how uh, it doesn't actually say lion and the lamb,
oh,
and it's the wolf and the lamb will lie down together. But anyways, uh, completely off topic, but it just came to my mind because he is basically insisting that we live in kind of a realm where things are manipulated, kind
oh,
of like
okay,
the Matrix or something.
oh,
And
you know, I don't know. I guess I would say, like, yeah, I don't know, like, I don't even know if I'd say it like that. Like, I wonder, like, if there must be a way to get to it, Lord. It just seems like there's this guy, Chris Langan, the guy who has the high IQ, who has the theory of everything. You ever heard of him? He's like, he has a high IQ, and he basically has it's called CTMU. It's like the cognitive model theory of reality. But I think it basically is, I think it's probably true, but it's basically what we're saying, but like about, like, he's basically saying that he's putting it all together. Like, there's the physical, like physics, reality, but then there's something which, like, because everything in science seems to be more geared towards that idea, physics. But then
yeah,
there's, I guess, I don't know if it's called metaphysics, whatever is it, like, religion, ideas, and stuff, like the reality of those things, kind of like Jordan Peterson talks about, how, like,
yeah,
the ideas themselves, like the metaphors, is true. It's so true it might as well be a quantifiable. I think he puts it together, and I think it's true.
yeah.
But I also think, like, they're like this key thing. I think this is how, or this is a way for somebody just to see it, like, because I know Robert talks about it, but it's essentially just a picture language. You're just swapping one word for a meaning. You just
So
sent, yeah,
you know how Hebrews talks about the milk and the meat.
yeah,
Well, so I kind of wonder if, as we're getting deeper into this thought process,
yeah,
we're finding the deeper meaning in things.
yeah.
And, in some ways, I think that one of the easiest keys to identify is like what you're talking about with 1,000-year being like a day or whatever.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of those type of things that as you really start looking or seeking the kingdom, so to speak,
Yeah.
you're going to find even things that other people aren't talking about. You're going to find things that, God's going to give you some sort of revelation that nobody's talking about. It's like,
yeah. And I think, like I could agree to that because the whole movie thing I've been saying, like I haven't been able to find anybody. I could show it, but it sounds ridiculous. Like
go into it.
Let me do the. So there's keys. I'll just do the keys real quick. Like we talked about the millenniums. I'll put it on a chart just so it's easy, like so we can all be on the same. Oh, okay. So I might have trouble. Okay. So you have, this is time, and let's say time is split up into 7 millenniums for now. So you have this right here is all of time, like spread out on a line, and so if this is right here, like the beginning, the first like 4,000 years before Christ came, so it's like 4,999 or whatever. I think there's another way to break this down, but this is just for the parable for now. So you put 4 there. So the 4 days before Jesus came, essentially. Let me put a cross above this, or if I can. Anyways, 4 days before Jesus came. So like 4,000 years, symbolic time. So 4. Anytime you see a 4 in a story, you're talking about like that's a symbolic time before the word came into the world. So before water came into the world. So this is always a time in the desert on dry land because there's essentially the word didn't come in, which is the water, into reality to explain God. So you were this is a time of the desert. This is the time of the wilderness time. And so if you put 4 plug 4 into any other story, but you put 4 with however many zeros, so 40, 4,400, you're probably going to be in the symbolic story referring to this time. So like 40 days in the wilderness, Jesus for 40 days is a metaphor of that. Does that make sense for now? If you can hear me. Oh, I don't think you can hear me actually.
Sorry, I kind of kicked myself out on accident.
Oh, okay.
But it worked out because I wanted to give you a full screen.
Okay. Yeah, you could keep it like that, just so we can riff, I guess. But if that makes sense, so you got that's like symbolically 4, the 4 before Christ, like, or whatever, if you were to see the story. And then so that's like the wilderness, the desert, like in the story, and then 4 followed by however many zeros. When you plug that in, like you're referencing that time. So like Jesus 40 days in the wilderness, the Israelites 40 days, Lazarus 4 days in the tomb, and then when Jesus comes to him, he comes alive. So Lazarus is like the Old Testament coming alive when Jesus explains it, kind of thing, in the parable. So then you have 5, which would be the next millennium, symbolically. It's not working too well, but so 5 would be the 5th millennium is when Jesus came, the word but like that's also the same millennium when the church, I guess became strong and kind of focused on their own understanding, like I guess the pig type of understanding. And the 5 foolish, the 5 wise, and the 5 foolish. I'm not 100% sure this follows that, but
the oil in the lamps.
Yeah, so it's like in a possibility, it's possibly like 5, like in the 5th millennium, was the truth, or you could go the other way, like also in the 5th millennium, the truth.
Oh wow, I actually never looked at it that way. So
there's some other stuff. So 5 is like a dual number; it's negative and positive. Like so, 5 is when the word came, so the 5th millennium. And I think in the book of Adam and Eve, it mentions it specifically. He came in the 5,500 year of time, but that would make this. We'd have to. That would make sense how the time got changed a little bit, but it's still good to this. I just won't mention that because it makes things complex. I think it makes it more exact, but it's pointless for now.
But yeah, I want to explain something to you real quick. So what do you think of the number 7? So it's number of completion or something, right?
Yeah, that's like the 7th millennium is the Sabbath, but it's also it's the number of let me put it there. So definitely it's the completion, like he rested. So this is when we rest from our potentially the doctrines and whatnot.
So I don't know if I talked to you about this yet,
Okay.
but this is like kind of a key that I found in reality, I guess.
Yeah.
But I came up with the series patterns of reality, and I really want to just like keep doing that. I just haven't. But I really expanded on. I don't know if you saw Patterns of Reality episode 1, but you did watch the long documentary I did.
Yeah.
But I kind of took a piece of the big documentary and put it in episode 1.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing I made a video about rainbows back in the day. It is one of my first YouTube videos that I actually did a lot of editing and I felt like I put a lot of work into it. But it did not get popular at all. It probably got like 80 views or something like that. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to reuse this video and put it in this other one. Yeah. But I kind of realized like, I never really remembered the colors that were in the rainbow.
Yeah.
But, and it could just be on a spectrum as far as like the colors kind of blending together. But when you actually look at each distinct color, there's seven colors in the rainbow, right?
Yeah.
Red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet. That's just all the colors that you'll see on that light spectrum.
Yeah, and it has to do with. It's interesting because that ties in with the flood, and they're like, I wonder, that might be directly proof of this whole idea within reality.
Well, but what's funny too?
Yeah,
is that when you look at all the letters of the music scale, there's other variations, but when you look at A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G.
Yeah.
There's 7, frequencies, I guess, within that music frequency.
Yeah, I think it's true.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I think it like the kingdom is spread out and men don't recognize it. It might be like in everything. I think it's in everything. I just haven't. I mean,
people. I'm telling you, I've talked about this, and people just it like goes over like in one ear and out the other. I don't think anyone really cares. But
eventually, maybe it might take a long time.
I know, but I kind of thought about that, and I was like, I don't think that's just a coincidence.
No, I don't think so. Yeah, it's just like. Well, yeah, I guess 7's that raid the complete or the Sabbath the completion.
But then 8 actually has significance too, so it's not like
8 is they all do it seems like every.
But isn't 8 kind of the unseen realm in some ways?
It seems it makes sense because 8's like it's not like a real day of the week, but like it's like it's a part of the next week, but like but also like it's when the flesh comes off, so that makes sense. That's when like when the veils...
That's when you enter the unseen realm. I'm telling you, I think that has something to do with it.
Yeah. So Sabbath must be like a rest because it, Satan is released again after the Sabbath. So there must be there's some type of rest here in the Sabbath or whatever that doesn't.
So when you go to rest, you go to die. So when you die, you enter into your rest. So I don't know. I get kind of fired up talking about this stuff because I feel like we're touching on something.
No, I mean with the rainbow thing, like I guess I'll just extrapolate on it to this idea, and then I'll get into like the movie thing because it has to do with the rainbow thing. I was like, well, I'll just get just to get some numbers on the board, but like just to see 6 is the 6,000 years before the Sabbath. But also 6 is the number of men. So there's
symbolic meaning for these numbers.
Yeah, this is just like 6 is like the understanding of men, which is not hard to see. The 666, the number of man. 6,000 years we've been under the teachings of men. Technically, first the Israel teaching, and then the after Christ came, the Christian. It's all been men teaching us the earthly level understanding. But then I guess we learned on the 7th, and then 2 would be symbolic of the 2 millenniums, the 2,000 years. From when Christ came till the Sabbath, and then 3, the 3rd day is also the Sabbath, but starting from the beginning of Christ. So the Christian, this is like the Christian measuring of it, So 2, so 2,000 years. So yeah, I don't think I got these marked. Let me see if this red one works better. But oh yeah, it does. Okay, so 2. So 2,000. So anytime you see a 2. is like referencing the 2,000 years between when Christ first came and the mystery was lost till the Sabbath, and this would be called like winter. This would be metaphorically like, you know, when everything's hard, whereas this would be summer. When the sun's shining. So like even Jesus said something about that. Like I forgot. Like I think he said like some winter is coming when no man can work or something like that, and that would be like this time period. And then this would be summer. This would be the Sabbath, and then one is also the single millennium. You know, of time when I guess we start thinking like what we're thinking like now. I guess we start. You know, I guess probably seeing both, and then I guess the metaphor for that would be 12, because you know 6 is the understanding of men, and if you double that, that's like the understanding of the earth, and if you double, you're understanding both flesh and spirit, so you're understanding the earthly physical and as well as the spiritual meaning. So that would be to double. So even like 14 is like a double number. So when you double, that's just, you know, understanding both ways. This is I'm experimenting with this. It seems to be true, but like 11 might be like not being 12, because you know, like when Judas was with them, the disciples, like they were technically like 11, if you were metaphorically, because he's like a metaphor for the people who rule during this time. You know, like he's kind of like a stand-in for the Pharisees. So like it's kind of like the parable there is like the Pharisees handing him the 30 pieces of silver. It's almost like the teaching of the Pharisees being given to the church leaders for when it says 30 pieces of silver, it's like for 3,000 years, because 3 followed by however many zeros, if that makes sense. Maybe that's too much, but
well, I mean, I'm trying to wrap my head around it, but
okay. But yeah, but basically you could plug these into these. I guess we'll just stick with these as the numbers for like plugging it into like.
Wait, so did you say that you can add the 1 and the 2 and the 1 and the 1? Because I know in a lot of numerology type videos I watch, I've seen them like add the 12 together to make 3.
Yeah, I think you could do. I mean, this is like the basic. I'm like, I don't know this too well myself, but I think you can like if you were to do a number like well, one I know is like in the Bible you see like the blood is up to the horse's bridle for 1600 stat or whatever.
Stadia.
And then like, so that could be I know Robert's talking about it, but it could be like the single millennium, you know, doing away with what's been done for the 6 millenniums, you know, like the under something like that, you know, like I don't know how it works. Like if you were to put like you know, The Shining, remember that movie? You ever seen it? The hotel number is the 237, right?
Yeah, there's like a moonlighting hoax written into that.
Yeah, so like how I see that is because that room has like you see a beautiful woman, but really it's like an ugly woman or something. So it's almost like if this is true, like so it's like 237. So it's like putting this teaching, the teaching of the 2000, the negative, the false teaching for 2,000 years, putting that in front of basically covering up the teaching, the truth of the millennium. You know, like I guess could be like so like you think it's a beautiful woman, like you think it's a beautiful church, but really it's, you know, old lady, it's the whore of Babylon or whatever kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then I mean if there's I guess we could get into that, but like to me I think that all,
you know, a lot of this stuff just ties into the end times eschatology type stuff, but
okay,
I just don't think that it I don't think anyone really understands or grasps it fully.
okay.
I mean, maybe they do, maybe somebody does, but I mean, you know, like with I do feel like now is like significant somehow. I do feel like it is, because
It seems like I think we are entering that the Sabbath.
the Sabbath rest.
Yeah, but I think Robert's talked about it. I'm not sure if maybe I don't 100%. You know, I still have a lot to learn. I've only been doing this for like since 2022.
Yeah.
But it does seem
Robert
like
doesn't like to talk about the.
Well, he mentioned. I know he talks about. Yeah, I think he does. Well, I guess I don't want to speak for him, but like from my understanding of what I'm seeing, it does seem like it's like the New Jerusalem. It sounds like it's within man. We are able to put off, you know, because it comes from above. We're able to get the understanding from above, the higher understanding, and kind of do away, I guess, with what we've been taught for the last 6,000 years, maybe, or
Yeah.
I mean, or able to understand what we've been taught on that level, like to see the parable in it, like something like that.
Yeah.
I think we are. I mean, but but that could explain how you don't know that they are because it just comes on gradually or something.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know. Like a lot of people will say there's always been wars and rumors of wars.
Yeah.
There's always been pestilence. There's always been, people dying of starvation and things like that. But
well, even if this is true, then maybe I've been considering that too. Like maybe, maybe this tribulation and all that stuff is true, and that's like the winter, like World War II and all that stuff, and even what we're experiencing now. But the day is dawning, maybe, and we're basically here, and so like we're coming out of that. Maybe. I don't know if that's true because of the significance of the war that's happening right now. But to me, like it's possible. Like we're coming out of it because I mean we do have. I don't know. I mean that'd be a whole nother discussion. But like,
do you know who Michael Rood is?
No.
So one of it was like a 9-part series or something like that. Each video was like an hour plus.
Yeah.
And I think I probably dedicated like 12 hours to that series. But it was called the Jonah Code. And it talked a lot about the symbology of, now he had mentioned something about what they call Aviv barley. So like harvest time.
Okay.
Harvest, they don't really consider the time as much as they do the progress of the crop, so to speak. And this crop, the barley, they call it Aviv, like Tel Aviv.
Yeah.
I think that Aviv just means that it's ripe. So, or it's ready for harvest. But they waited for the plants to reveal that to them, not necessarily the time.
Yeah, and I think and maybe that's how we know we're like. I think just being able to if we're able to understand something, it's kind of like what you're saying. It's like, I guess once you get it, and maybe it was just hard to understand because, I mean, I'm sure people understood this stuff even within like before people now, but even what you're saying, like the harvest, and then like if it's like a wheat harvest or something, that's still like the word's ripe, for understanding, or like even like finding like those books like in the Nag Hammadi and stuff like later. To me, that says the reason I think those are significant is because they really focus a lot on the whole idea of the how in Luke 17 Jesus says the end will not, or the kingdom won't come with signs to be observed, looking here or there, but rather the kingdom is within you or in your midst, depending on your translation. And like I guess he only says that once in the actual like the King James Bible, but this Nag Hammadi has them saying it like thousands of times. Like the whole thing's about that. Like the other books that they found that were like discarded.
Is that like a?
It's like that's where like
Eastern religions.
It's mostly like the Gospel of Truth, Gospel of Thomas. I think there was some like Plato in there. They say it's like Gnostic, but I guess like scholarship's kind of getting away from that term Gnostic because it's like there's a lot of different camps in there. But like, because I mean, you can understand them with the same keys that the regular Bible has. So that's why I think it's fine, and it kind of makes sense since they came later and they're not like tampered with, as far not mean tampered with, but you can't really change the fact that those people thought that then, like it's almost like a message in a bottle. Like these people already thought that, at that time, and that's pretty early, it kind of, I feel like it explains what we got better or helps,
Yeah. I often think about like the, like when the Gnostics, the Gnostics kind of became a thing like 100 AD or something, right? I'm trying to think of.
Like, that's what they say. I mean, from I've been looking into it a lot. Like, yeah, it seems like. I mean,
it's post Bible. Like, they like all the letters and stuff that were written by Paul and all them. The Gnostics came after, right?
Well, that's what
Did they talk about it in the Bible? Because I feel like
I feel like it should be. It's almost like, from my personal view, is like, yeah, I think there was some later, but there was also like from people's description of Gnosticism, it sounds like you could call John the Acts of, the Gospel of John, like a Gnostic. I don't know. I think maybe like it's like, because that term is like a buzzword with like if ever whenever you watch like debates from Christians, usually
Mhm.
somebody's accusing somebody of being a Gnostic. And so to me it almost doesn't mean anything. But when I read it, I just see like, okay, these guys were very in tune with the parable. Uh,
Yeah, you know,
these books are, yeah,
yeah. I mean, I think of Jesus when he was like basically scolding the disciples for not understanding.
yeah,
Like, don't you get it? I mean, he was
yeah,
kind of going off on him, and I don't know. I just kind of liken it to that kind of thing where he was trying to spell it out for him,
yeah,
but they still were carnally minded, I guess.
yeah. And I think that's kind of what happens. Like, it just takes. I think obviously I think the apostles understood it fully, or even Paul, because like he definitely seems to be talking about it, but he like like from this perspective, you could almost write a letter from Paul better than you could just from an evangelical perspective, because you can't really, because like the stuff he says is fairly complex.
Oh yeah,
He's not watering it down.
yeah. Some of my favorite, yeah, I guess you could say, scriptures came from Paul, like in Romans 6, 7, and 8.
Yeah,
I feel like there was like a battle that was taking place within him, as to how to express himself on the matter.
yeah, and for sure, like yeah, it's I'm trying to think what we could how we could solidify this better. Let me see. Maybe let me show you. You haven't read the Acts of John, right? The
No,
okay, or yeah, it's from what I mean, I don't want to like let me I'll put it
you
on
want to share
here. Yeah, but I would just keep it so we could talk too. Just
again? Okay.
I'll share the screen. Um, so this one's called the Acts of John, and it has some you can see. Okay, let me see if I can scroll. It has some like it has a lot of acts of like that John did. After after we see him in the Bible, after the Book of Acts or something, and then it gets into this one section where he like explains like when he was around, when Christ was around. So it gets into like retelling some of the the transfiguration scene, and it says some interesting things like about how like when he saw Jesus, like I can't remember the order, but one of them like looked out and saw like old man, and then he saw a young man, or vice versa, or something like that. But then it was Jesus, obviously. But even that idea in of itself, if Jesus is the Word, it sounds like how like our understanding of him. So like one guy's understanding is like you have a child's understanding of God, but then another person could have like a more in-depth understanding. So that'd be like seeing him as an old man. But that's how I would interpret that. But if that was a parable, and that's hard for people to understand, because they would say like, so you're saying Jesus is like he can transform like a chameleon or something. But I think it's more about it's more about our understanding of him. Like it even mentions in here something about like seeing him, like one time he has a longer beard and then another time it's shorter. I think it's the same idea. Like it's just your understanding of the word or something like that. But
Gosh, you know how this ties into near-death experiences?
yeah, I mean, it sounds like a near-death experience. Like, well, even with the whole idea of you're mentioning about the rainbow, it sounds like dreams, reality, the art we make, the scriptures. It must all be it's all from one mind, God's. You know what I mean? Or he's working in some way.
Yeah,
Uh,
like interpretation of things. So I'm finding my brain just kind of feeling a little scattered,
yeah,
because like I feel like we're supposed to understand these things.
yeah,
At the same time, it's like you could really take this pretty much any direction. Sometimes, if you don't look at things precisely the way that they're intended, you might
Yeah.
completely misunderstand or miss whatever. But and it brings me back to that concept of like, are you really gonna have to suffer in hell if you don't
Yeah.
repent and turn to God or whatever?
Yeah.
If you're living on some island out in the middle of nowhere where nobody will ever talk to you about the gospel.
Yeah.
And I started and then I started hearing these perspectives about hell, how
Yeah.
hell was just a metaphor.
Yeah. Like,
And I thought like hell, in a lot of ways, well, in near-death experiences, hell was actually tribulation. Hell was actually the way that people became refined, because
yeah,
they came back from hell changed.
I think,
You know what I'm saying?
and yeah, that makes sense since they're able to, well, even, yeah, the story of how people came to the concept that they have of, the hell, the torture chamber is from a parable, the one of the Lazarus and the rich man or whatever. That's definitely a parable. And then even the whole, to me, the idea that the Bible, like, it seems to be more important, the actual locations mentioned, like Tartarus or like Gehenna and Hades, like those seem to be more the keys you would need. But if you just strap the word hell there, you're only going to think that other concept,
Well, yeah.
So
Hell was the grave
yeah,
in the Old Testament, and hell was Gehenna,
yeah,
or I guess Tartarus was the Old Testament, right?
yeah.
But that was a Greek god, right?
Well, even like well, that makes sense too, because like if like death,
Hades.
yeah, like if like death is like parabolic of like not understanding. So in that one parable where it's like like the Pharisees in hell or whatever, it's almost, it makes sense that like metaphorically, like okay, I guess like the tree of life versus the tree of death, if you eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil only, like just the flesh and blood, like the law, it kind of leads to a dead understanding. It kind of leads to hell if you think about what's happened, like in the world because of just focusing on that. Like
Yeah.
if you're to think about, I mean, I guess Islam's a modern day example, or even like anytime you see somebody abused because of like some cult or something, they're basically in hell in a form of it. But I wouldn't say like, I don't know what to do with the next afterlife part of it
Can I
now.
take it off the screen for a second?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah,
Um,
let me stop sharing that.
yeah. So I don't know. This is I feel like we're kind of tapping into something here, because you know, I've had interviews about this, like, and I've talked about it with people, and if I talked about like this kind of stuff with my family, I don't think they would accept it very well.
It's kind of like triggering to people, that
Well,
kind
yeah,
of thing.
like
Yeah.
the whole concept of hell um, is what drives Christians to evangelize, right? So, but if you don't understand something, like, I don't want to simplify, like, so I talked to Howard Storm about this a little bit,
Yeah.
because I started thinking about how his near-death experience and Ian McCormick's near-death experience were almost identical,
Okay.
and they're both really famous near-death experiences
Yeah.
and independent of each other. So you had one guy that was in New Zealand, one guy that was in France at the time.
Yeah.
But Howard Storm was from the States.
Yeah.
I think he lives in Kentucky now, but he was basically drawn into this place of darkness where he was beat up by these beings, whether they were people or spirits or whatever.
Yeah.
And then he had like something pop into his head, like it was given to him
Yeah.
to call out to God or say something that had to do with spirituality,
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
he was an atheist, so he's like, I don't know what to say. I remember the Golden Rule, or I remember, the Amazing Grace, or something like that.
Yeah.
And as soon as they basically gave in to the thought or yielded to it in some ways, that's when something broke up the darkness and light shone down on him. And then I'm explaining the same thing that happened to Ian McCormick.
Yeah.
They were both in some outer darkness place of Hades or whatever you want to call it. It wasn't like burning hellfire, but they were all in, they were in darkness. And I might call it the valley of the shadow of death.
Yeah.
But they called out to God in some way, and then they were brought into the light. And the light rescued them.
Yeah.
And they went into heaven and had an experience with Jesus or the light or whatever.
Yeah.
And it makes me think about how, because I talked to Howard Storm about this. I was like, so this whole thought about like eternal damnation, like what does that mean on the grand scheme? Because you were saying, I'm saying him.
Yeah.
You as in him.
Mm-hmm.
He says that reality didn't work the same way there. It was eternity. So you couldn't really put your time on top of it. He said it was eternally now. So if there was an eternal now then when he was having the experience, how can you have an eternal damnation if it was already eternity? Like it was always eternity at that moment. you know what I mean?
I've looked at some of the near-death experiences, and that was one of the things that popped in my mind. And I'm not saying they're not, like, most of the ones I looked at are guys that went to hell and they're trying to warn people, but they always say something like that where it's like they say, I think they really had it, but they say like, they always say like it was eternal, like I don't know how to explain it, but like it was, like it was all like time is different there, but I don't know. I feel like there must be a better way to. I think it's more like something you're talking about, like it's something, because that whole that vision makes total sense from a parabolic sense, even if like if for example my life, like I'm looking for Christ, which is the light, I guess, like in that parable, but I'm kind of in darkness, basically. I don't understand, or it's foggy, and then I guess the closer you get like to understanding the truth, and in that parable or in that near-death experience, it's actually Jesus who brings them out of it as the light.
Mm-hmm.
It makes sense that that's what's going to lead us out of this darkness, like, which is basically not understanding, because like I guess like since Christ is from the truth of reality, like how God made, God, he's from outside of time. Essentially he's from the Father, which is the God who made everything. So he understands everything, and he's from that perspective, but we're from the perspective of the earth. And so I guess that's why we have to put our faith in him, because he's actually from that perspective.
Yeah.
It's just finding him essentially in everything. I don't know. Which it always seems like it's the light, or it's Jesus, or something rescues people in these visions, don't they? Or
yeah, there's always something. I mean, sometimes it could be being rescued by a guardian angel, or could be rescued by a family member, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know if I've ever heard anybody say they met Joseph Smith or anything, but I'm sure there is stuff like that out there.
I've seen ones where they say they saw him in hell, but like sometimes when people share their hell experiences, it's like check off the list who you think would be there. Hitler, it's like,
Brian Melvin said that.
It's like there's Hitler there. Yeah, I mean, not to say it's not true. I just, maybe they did see him in the vision. I'm just saying, like if you.
Yeah, a lot of the naysayers that are like atheists or whatever that say they think religion's stupid.
Yeah.
They're like, so what? Are you telling me that if Hitler said on his deathbed that he repented, that he would be saved? And I don't really understand. I don't know if that's a false premise, like the whole question,
Yeah.
Like, what does that even mean? So to die, I kind of want to go back to this,
Okay.
Sabbath millennium.
Yeah.
Like, I kind of wonder if, dying, just even physically dying is a symbolic meaning.
I know there's the that one thing I was telling you about, it was in the Nag Hammadi, I think, called the treatise on the resurrection, but it talks about, I think it was basically alluding to, yeah, we're all gonna die, but like the resurrection has something to do with you know putting on that whole thing, like how Paul's talking about the elemental, like seeking Christ where he is at the right stand of the Father, and like doing away, like not thinking so much on just the flesh and blood. But that book made it seem like that's what it was talking about, like that was a like yeah, like I guess I've been wondering, like, because at least during the Sabbath it seems like, yeah, people are gonna die, like but the fact that that there's an eternal, like, you could tell that you could see the keys in all reality or something, or you could see God's hand in everything, that there is nothing to fear, because I basically could see his hand in everything, maybe. So where you're
Well,
going back.
this is kind of a mirror of
Yeah.
the true reality.
Yeah. I think Hebrews talks about that too, like how everything on earth has something in heaven. Like it
Yeah, it
mentioned.
will be loose in heaven. On
Yeah.
earth will be loose in heaven.
So like
Yeah.
everything here on earth is a symbol, or not that it's all. I don't want to take any value
It's all
out of it.
one onion.
Yeah.
We're all part of one
Like,
onion anyway. It's just the different layers.
yeah, like if something's spiritual, it's not seeable, and the only way to see it is to show it in the flesh, I think.
Or it's off the spectrum of the rainbow.
Yeah. Yeah, like if you how do I explain it? Like
it's the eighth day.
Yeah, like, well, like what would you like? Like, I guess, like, it seems like I don't even know if this makes sense, but like if you were, because we're always gonna have, like, it seems like we're always gonna be able to see with our physical eyes, but like, say, like when you watch a movie, like we talked about last time, The Wizard of Oz, like with your physical eyes, you see a fantasy movie where a girl transports to another realm, and she eventually comes back home by, tapping her feet together and coming back home. But if there's the actual meaning in that story, it's acted out, but you can't, like, you couldn't understand it just by watching it necessarily. You have to see it with your other eye, I guess, your spiritual eye. It seems to me like you're always going to have something physical to represent something that you can't see. I don't know. I don't know if that makes sense. And then maybe like later on the eighth day or whatever is like something where it's just full on spiritual. But
I feel like I learned something today about the eighth day. I actually think about the eighth day as being you're experiencing, afterlife, so to speak.
Yeah, that makes sense too. Like it, because maybe it seems like it's always possible to, like, from some of this Nag Hammadi, it seems like it was always possible to experience the Sabbath as well. Even, I don't. Well, maybe not, because Barnabas says, like, I guess the real Sabbath, like, you wouldn't know it until you were in it, but like maybe that's when everyone starts to understand things. But
yeah, my brother and dad will say that the Sabbath is forever, so it's not something that was ever done away with. So they take it very seriously that you have to honor the Sabbath.
Because that Barnabas not having that in the Bible definitely makes it hard to see that, because that book definitely mentions it like as like that, like the Sabbath was always pointing towards the millennium, and then like it's always a parable of that. The true Sabbath, I guess, is what it says, which is interesting. It's something like most, because even like in the evangelical community, like they'll talk about the Sabbath, like, oh, I do my Sabbath on this day or that day, but they're still talking about it in terms of the just taking a day to rest, which is fine. But it's the rest. I mean, I guess in the parable, in the spirit, there's a big meaning for it, I guess, like that it was always pointing towards.
Yeah.
Which,
I want to make your brain explode real quick. Hold on.
Yeah.
So you know how I don't know. When I was a little kid, we had this like medicine cabinet in the bathroom that, like, when you turned, had a mirror on it. So when you
Yeah.
open it up, you could see it, like, you know, like reflect off of itself like a
Yeah.
million times, and you could see as far, you could see like 30 reflections down
Yeah.
the way or whatever.
Yeah.
Well, so another thing about rainbows is something that kind of coincides with octaves.
Okay.
So octaves, how it just kind of A B C D F G, and then it starts over.
Mm-hmm.
A B C D F G A B C, and it just kind of repeats itself.
Yeah.
So, but it's an octaves higher or lower.
Okay.
So, like when you look at a mirror, it's kind of bouncing off of itself.
Yeah.
That was kind of like octaves, so to speak. But I actually have images of rainbows that look like you can see different layers of the rainbow. Like
Okay.
you can see it go deeper and deeper and deeper.
That makes sense. Yeah, as a
Like
parable.
it's almost like repeating itself, like it's a mirror image or something.
Yeah, I mean that makes sense. Like it's well, even just like that, there's higher and lower, and then or you could go deeper and deeper. But it almost is always saying like, because the scriptures I think do that. Like, I think it just repeats itself over and over. Like how you saw Robert talking about the how in Genesis it's like the same parable that is everywhere, which is the
Yeah.
waters above and below being separated and then joining together again. Um, it just seems to be the same thing over and over, repeating.
So this kind of leads me into the
Yeah.
thought process of, a lot of people argue about the age of the earth or whatever. Was it just the 7,000 years time frame that we're dealing with, or is there pre-existence as well? Which obviously historically we don't have anything to show for. I think that there's archaeology that shows things that died. There's a lot of things that
Yeah.
could have been in the flood.
Yeah. Personally, like I'd be open to like I'm more open now to like see it as symbolic, but I still in my heart truly believe it probably like I can't like I actually think probably that 7 millennium time frame's true. But I don't know if it's necessary. It seems to be more important at least to like if somebody's onto evolution, but I could still explain to them this, like, okay, I'll just say like say if this is symbolic time or like I personally believe it's real, but like you could also still tell them the same parables, I guess, through that, like when it started counting or whatever.
Well, the deeper level meaning started coming to life within this realm.
Yeah.
This time frame. Maybe there was a pre-existence, because there was a there was a girl that I talked to a long time ago that I didn't even know her, but I was very outward about my faith and things.
Yeah.
And she's like, well, I do have a question about the Bible, because I'm the only one that really ever talked about it at work and stuff.
Yeah.
Which I was warned that if I keep talking about it, I would lose my job.
Oh wow.
And I'm like, whatever, man, who cares? And but this girl just kind of started talking to me about it, and she's like, did you ever wonder why when Cain was kicked out or whatever, like he went to this area where he ended up finding a wife? Like, what is that all about? Did he go to like find a wife that was like not his sibling?
Yeah. What? I guess that's why, like, I think you know what, that's why I think the answer, like when you watch those debates between like Ken Ham and Bill Nye and all those old debates that people had, like you kind of realize that from now I could see that they're both basically essentially they're battling each other with earthly level understanding, and just like to me, like, yeah, it seemed like it clear based off what you just said, it seems very important for it seems like the worst thing the church ever did was cut off their metaphorical ability, like, because that seems to be the way that's the way.
But at the same time, it's like, who Ron Wyatt is?
The one who found the ark, right? Or
the Ark of the Covenant and the Ark of Noah. So I actually I lend credence to
Yeah.
what he has discovered, but at the same time, it's like it's so dismissed by people in the church or whatever, because
Yeah.
they think that he's like kind of a Fruit Loop or whatever. He
No,
didn't
yeah.
discover Noah's Ark. He actually they found it back in the 50s or something when they were doing aerial,
Yeah.
you know, photography or whatever.
Yeah.
And they found this formation that resembled a boat, so they wanted to investigate it.
Yeah.
And it was somebody from the States that came out and dismissed it like it was not. It was just a abnormal formation or whatever. And that's when Ron Wyatt discovered that they wrote it off like it was nothing or whatever. And then he went and investigated it in the 70s and 80s or whatever.
Yeah.
But then he found a lot of things that they didn't find.
Yeah.
Which I'm on board that probably was a boat or a Noah's
Yeah.
Ark.
Yep.
I mean,
I got no problem with it.
I mean, because if you look at like the Turkish government believes it too.
Yeah.
But the reason I'm bringing this up is because if there's something on a physical level that can be, corroborated.
Yeah.
Like he found chariot wheels in the
Yep.
Red Sea and things like that.
Yeah.
It's like, I think that, and the Mount Sinai,
Yeah.
the real Mount Sinai, which I don't know if you ever saw that, but
no, yeah. I've been looking into that too. Like, well, I think, yeah, like, I guess that's why I was able, like, that's why I started looking at, like, seeing the keys in the movies. But I think it's because it's that idea that, like, it works on two levels, but it, like, even the, like, so the fact that story, like Noah's Ark, really happened, but it also contains the other level meaning, and it was also written down in such a way to where you could see the parable here now, and in the millennium, maybe it makes it seem like there must be a way to, at all times in reality, probably this thing's acting itself out. You just don't recognize it. Like it's just a matter of being like maybe aware of it. Like the reason I use films is because that's kind of like a time capsule. It's something when you make a movie, you have a script. That's the initial thing, and you don't. Where's that idea coming from? This first thing, like, are you really? Is it just coming from within your own intuition? Maybe there's some of that, but then sometimes when I write something, it's just coming. Like because you're just you're thinking, and then all of a sudden there's an idea there. This character's all of a sudden doing something, but then also when you make it, all these different things happen. Like an actor improvs, somebody doesn't show up, different things happen to where it becomes its own thing. And then when you edit it and all this other stuff. But in my experience looking back, all the accidents that happen, all the things, at least in my movies, have this same parabolic language as like like the scriptures or whatever. And I've personally seen it in other movies. So I basically look at films as like time capsules, and also like a shared dream that you can show someone that conveys a meaning regardless of all the improv, all the accidents on set, that somehow appears to be from the same mind that created the scriptures without the artists even knowing it. Because
you just reminded me. So like your grandma, like became part of some revelation that you had in a dream. Yeah. And I don't even know where I was going to go with this, but I was just thinking about how, like, these revelations within the dreams, or whatever. Because I have these moments where I like have like some sort of recollection, or maybe deja vu or something.
Yeah.
Where I feel like I've acted this out in a dream or whatever.
Yeah.
Like I anticipate what's going to happen next. Like it's just going to happen, and I just know it. And so this knowing doesn't necessarily have to be symbolic. It could just be, but it could be symbolic.
I think it might be something like there's nothing that can't be, because how like if you saw the thing that Robert said, like in the creation story, the waters above and below were separated or whatever, or the spirit was hovering over the surface of the waters. So it seems like if the water's like the word, so if the concept of the word is the logos or whatever, but if it's from one, there's the written word, but there's also that concept as the very mind and thought of God that holds together all reality.
Yeah.
You know, that's a way to look at it. Like, so from his perspective, everything is encoded probably, and also like it's like, so when we have deja vu, I wonder if it's just, I don't know, it's almost like seeing something outside of time, you know, from that, you know, it's like seeing how he would, you know, on glimpsing it for a second. Or
Are you familiar with the Akashic records?
no.
So I'm not really that familiar with it either, but I have a guy that I used to talk to at work that was a really deep thinker, and he he said he basically went away from Christianity to learn like a lot deeper stuff or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And he was talking to me about the Akashic records, and I kind of looked into it, and it turns out that they're like all knowledge is out in the ether, and that basically everything that is considered revelation actually comes from the Akashic records. And this is a kind of a new age concept, but I guess like Nikola Tesla, he will actually, I don't know if you go back and listen to some of his interviews or whatever, but he talked about how, or somebody outright asked him, like, how'd you come up with these concepts, or, you know, how'd you come up with these ideas? And he said that most of it just kind of came to him.
Yeah.
So he didn't really like come up with it per se, but it was something that came to him.
Yeah.
So Nikola Tesla, he was an example of basically, you know, just receiving information ultimately.
Yeah. That's the idea. Like when somebody, like it just seems like all of a sudden God wants us to be, and he gives it, and then people on the other side of the planet are doing it at the same time. I think that's
a good point.
That's probably like maybe what this whole millennium thing is too, like, because, you know, like, I think it's related to something like direct knowledge from the Father, but I guess you would say direct knowledge from like the source that created the world through the logos, through the word or whatever, which makes up all reality, or through the scriptures. But like and that's what it does feel like when Peter said, you know, when Jesus like says, who do you say that I am? And he says, thou art the, you know, I forgot what he says, thou art the Christ, the Son of the living God. And he says, flesh and blood has not shown this to you, but my Father who is in heaven. So he got that without even, from no one, just from seeing it, you know, from realizing it, from being given it, I guess, you know. And I think there's like something, like, I wonder if more people get it like that or something, or are just able to be open to it. Like, for my experience, how I say it is, like, I feel like I don't feel like a victim, but I feel like I've struggled so much with the doctrines of Christianity that it was easy for me to just, okay, let me look at this again. Mm-hmm. But some people haven't had a hard time with it, you know, like, so it's harder for them to like look again, you know, like a child would. And I think that's where like people like us, or like this whole idea can help. I think it's designed to help everyone, you know, like including not to be like a new thing, but it's like the new wine, the best for last, which is that whole parable of the, you know, the six. I think you've probably seen that with Robert, how he explains like the 6 jars of water that turn into wine. So that's like at the end of the 6,000 years, because it's the wedding feast. That's the millennium again. And then you bring out the water, the word, and it's the new wine, and you save the best for last, the best understanding for now, you know, on the 7th day. I mean, I'll share a picture like of that real quick, just to really glimpse it, because you could even share this, like, you could share a parable with just a picture, you know, like a snapshot of a picture, like all the information's there. Let me see. Sorry. You see that, like this picture? So that's I mean, parabolically, that's the millennium. You know, like after the 6 pots of waters, the 6,000 years, the word was contained. And then when you take the word out of the container, out of the cannon or whatever, it's the new understanding, and then you got the bride, the
Yeah,
bride,
that's great, man.
the bridegroom with the bride. So that's the church and Christ in union with the new wine, the spiritual understanding, because wine is linked with the Holy Spirit, like
Well,
oil.
yeah,
Yeah.
listen up, anybody that's still here with us. No, nobody.
Oh,
My channel's not super popular right now because I haven't been doing anything with it.
that's okay.
You know, if there is a takeaway here, I feel like this is the lens of how to interpret the scriptures. This is one of the keys of trying to understand the
Yeah,
fullness.
I'm sure there's I'm sure this is just like a drop in the bucket of what people can probably deduce from all this. Like, I'm sure, we can all learn from each other and find more. I'm sure it's just like endless, like.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, oh man, if you like digging into things like a riddle or something, or trying to unpack things, I mean, this
Yeah.
is the type of thing where you can have
Yeah.
an endless journey of enlightenment, I guess, because
Yeah.
it's interesting. I mean, to say the least. And now, some ways, I've kind of, I let a little too much in, I think, because when I started looking into archaics, that's another guy that I started listening to, and holy moly, I started feeling like, I got to just step back because I can't,
Yeah.
I can't absorb all this stuff, because I just feel like it's easier just to be a blank slate, like a
Yeah.
kid, like a child, because
Yeah.
if you're trying to approach everything with an agenda, that just you just have
I
to have
think,
a blank slate.
I experienced that too. Like, I actually had a dream where it was like, because I was always into end times guys, but I always noticed whenever I tried to like speak to the people I was listening to, like it would be very confrontational, like, and you might just ask a question, like, so it's like, but I had a dream where it was this end times guy about about the Islamic beast, where it was just like I was trying to go talk to him, but like this door just slammed on it, on this guy, and like subconsciously how I look at that is like, you got to stop, going to that, like it just for me, like for me, like, because certain because it's just gonna hurt, because it's not like, it's like with someone like that, like it's never gonna be like how we're talking now, which I think is what we need, is like the Joe Rogan experience, just people that just talk about this stuff and not be a debate, like just like somebody
Mhm.
has this, I have this, you have a lot of things, we're talking, we're sharing, and I think that's kind of what was going on in the original church, which is, like the whole idea of communion. It sounds it's like sometimes when you read Paul, it almost sounds like, okay, you have this, and let's all eat it together, metaphorically,
You
but
know,
then,
I kind of wondered if, like, in the back of my mind before I came on with you, I was like,
yeah,
I could totally do something like this with you on a regular basis, not just, I know that you're probably busy, and I'm busy,
not
obviously.
really. Honestly, I would appreciate it, because like I don't really know too many people out here, so me, it's just like good to get together with a friend,
Well, so
yeah,
like we
and
could talk
bounce
on
it
the
off.
phone, obviously,
That
but
too, yeah, or even this, it's just,
I like to do it out in the open, because a lot of people might listen to this and think, gosh, I don't have anyone else in my life that I could talk to. So maybe I'll just listen to these guys talk about it.
yeah. I mean, that's how I personally feel mostly. Like when I would watch you guys, you and Robert, or his videos, or other guys that, like, not just guys, or just, you feel like, to me, I'm interfacing. Like, even when I'm writing like a script, I feel like that's a way of getting the idea out. Like, even that movie you just watched, like that came from me just watching YouTube crime videos, and I realized how much the child abuse thing really bothered, like, and eventually, it came to make the movie, but I think it's good that this is out here, and because out there in the world, or especially the world of religion, it is pretty much, sometimes you come up with an idea and it triggers someone, and then it turns bad. It
Yeah.
turns, or it doesn't have. I've been more of a passerby with it myself lately, but I used to get pretty hurt by it. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
I think I'm kind of in a better spot than I was for a while there,
yeah,
because I feel like I don't really have as much of an agenda as I did.
Yeah.
I'm more of a, like a blank slate now, because I don't necessarily want to dilute it with my own. I guess in some ways, I don't want to, view it through the lens of a flesh perspective. Like I think an agenda, I mean, yeah, you got to have some sort of basis for what you understand, but
Yeah. Like, I guess like a good agenda, like for myself with this, I know like I'm sure like, well, like just as a side, it is interesting to me that like there's not really that many, as far as I get. I mean, there's probably some hucksters when it comes to the Book of Enoch, but like the reason I like the extra biblical stuff is because it's less, in my opinion, tarnished, and like it feels to me like people that are hucksters or like people that want to manipulate people always use something that has some authority. Like, so like they're always after something like the canon. There's always something in the end. It's always about putting something in a box as opposed to giving something to someone to free them, you
yeah,
know, as opposed to being like Neo in the Matrix. They're like Agent Smith, they want to just be, I don't know, like, I don't know what it means to be that kind of person. I've never been in that. I mean, maybe I've experienced it like in certain, maybe before, but it's difficult for me to understand that mindset, to be honest. But it just seems like it'd be better just to give it to people as opposed to hold them in a box. And it seems like the reason I'm able to talk to these Mormon guys and stuff is it seems like by throwing off the canon, it's like a whole new way of a whole new defense against the control, like, because they're essentially, you can't put God into the box. And once you realize that, you realize he's literally working in all things, including reality. It's just a little, and it's more like how, like, I guess, like, in order to see like the parable in like reality, you'd have to know like an example would be like a pig. The nature of a pig, you just look at their behavior. They're in the mud. If you know that how that parable works, you kind of see that meaning was always, that pig was created to have that meaning. you know you can see
yeah.
it, you can see
Man,
it.
there's a few takeaways on our
Sorry.
discussion I'm going to think a lot about. Um, I kind of wonder, going forward, because every time I do this, I'm like, man, I don't know why I don't do more of this. And I just feel like doing, kind of a routine,
Yeah.
you know, commitment, I guess, because obviously as a YouTube creator, it's like I want people to, I have 4,000 subscribers. You wouldn't think that by, seeing like the lack of people on the live stream, but
Maybe it's late. I don't know.
it could be that too. And it's late where you're at. That's for sure.
Well, I have like 50,000 on one of my YouTube channels, and
Yeah,
I think I'm shadow banned because I get no views anymore, but I used to. But it happens, like I don't know how it works, but
yeah. I mean,
yeah.
I'm kind of curious as to, I think what it comes down to is you have to be committed, and you
Yeah.
have to, put a video out on a regular basis. Which I'm thinking about. I just started developing my business page.
Yeah.
So like Dryer on Fire
Hmm.
YouTube channel. I
Yeah.
only had like 4 videos on there, and my top video had like 200 views already.
Yeah.
Which I didn't have that much traffic on this channel when I
Yeah.
first started it. It took me like interviewing people to get like 20, 30 people
Yeah.
each interview I did, and a lot of it had to do with like I try to interview people that have a little more, of a following than me, I guess.
Yeah.
And so like with Howard Storm, I think I got a bunch of subscribers from his, and
Yeah.
I got a bunch of subscribers from Roberts, and I got a bunch of subscribers from other people. But I'm pretty diverse in
Yep.
the topics that I get into, and I don't know. I mean, I just, the bottom line is I kind of wanted somebody that's like I don't know, like a regular, maybe even like a co-host or something. Because I don't know if you could commit to something like that, but
here and there, probably. Yeah. I mean, I don't. I'm trying to think. Like, it's like sometimes I'm not too good. Like, I'm not like this has worked out perfect, but I don't know. Maybe I'm getting better, but I feel like I feel like you do a good job on your own with that. But I mean, maybe here and there.
In fact, look, it's my buddy that, like, when I first started my channel, we actually talked conscious truth seeker. I used to have kind of like live streams where I would invite people to come on.
Yeah.
And he came on once.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I miss doing stuff. I actually got to know a few people, and I don't know how you're doing on time, but we're at 2 hours already. So if you need to get going, you can.
No, I mean, even yesterday I went to bed around like 1 or 2, so I'm good. It's the same. It's the
So, what was I saying? So I lost my train there.
You were talking about interviewing or doing more, I think.
So I've gotten to know a lot of the people that kind of come around. There was one person, Lady Weaver, that was on all the time.
Yeah.
And I got to talking to her, and I even interviewed her because she had a background in like the New Age perspective, and then she ended up having a conversion where she basically gave all that up and became a Christian. But she was a deep thinker, and she loved the near-death experience topics and stuff. So that's how she ended up on my channel. But it was through Howard Storm's interview, actually. But we would talk a lot, and we emailed back and forth, and but then I stopped hearing from her, and then she said she was really sick, and then she ended up dead. She died from cancer.
But
it actually broke my heart, because I was like, I got pretty close to her. We were friends. And I have another friend that I interviewed that went off the deep end, and he's freaking. I talk to him from time to time, but he actually had me remove that interview because he didn't want to be seen as that person anymore.
Okay.
I'm like, great, man.
But
like I'm telling you, there's just people that I got close to doing this stuff that I wear my heart on my sleeve. So I always want to, befriend everybody.
Yeah. And, I'm the same way.
And it's funny because, like, some people would look at me and think, "Oh, you're that guy on YouTube," so they think I'm like someone special, but I'm not. I'm not at all. And and the fact that you have 50,000 subscribers is cool.
Well, like I was saying, I honestly I think that with the 50,000, there's probably, since I didn't keep up to date with it, now every time I look, it's like minus like subscribers. Like I don't think it means anything for me, even with, unless I made like, it all came from this one Joker fan film I made. So whenever I drop something that's not based off DC Joker, like, where's the Joker, where's the next so that, like, I'm nothing either. Like,
how many views did you get on that video?
The Joker one, it's been a long time. It's been out since 2013. It was a joke. I mean, I have my hunch that actual Joker movie, not that they stole it, but they can't steal something I don't own. But I just mean the concept of it's an R-rated character study on the Joker. But we made it in 2013. But I think there's a couple versions of it out there, but combined it's like 12 million views or something. It got picked up like at the time on like those gaming sites like IGN and a couple things. It did good, and it's still, like, I have another channel where it still does pretty good. But I even had a dream about that as a negative thing, but like which I could see. It's kind of the only thing I ever made that doesn't have, like, at least on the surface level, like, it didn't, I don't think I feel like I had the best intent with it, as opposed to the idea just came and I did it. But like the one I just sent you, I feel like I could justify everything I put in that film for the meaning that it's trying to convey. but the Joker one, I think it was just a clever idea.
I mean, I made videos because I wanted to gain popularity or something.
That one was more like, I think I made like a war movie that year, and then I was actually visiting Pennsylvania at the time from California and then that Joker idea came up, where it's like, because my friend, I met a guy and he had a bat suit, and I was like, oh, I wonder if I could make a fan film, like, because he was making a fan film, and I was like, I wonder if I could do that, and then that whole idea of the origin of the Joker or whatever came, kind of like from the ether, I guess. And I wrote it really quick, like I could tell it was like a very inspired. And then I sent it to my friend Manny, who's an actor, and he said, hey, we could do this. We just cast it, and that is the first movie I made where that's how I learned how to make movies. Like, I mean, I've made other movies, but that was the first one where I like casted it and got actors.
Can I be honest with you? I want to work more closely with you on stuff like this. I mean, on movies, because in some ways, I feel like I'm getting a fire
Yeah,
for doing kind of doing my creative
yeah.
bug, I guess.
I'd like to help you out with I mean, especially if you want to do documentaries, or are you interested in like narrative features and stuff like that, or more documentary?
Well, so I guess in some ways I don't mind. I don't really have any experience in. I mean, I've made documentaries, I guess, but
Yeah.
it's not like I've never had any formal training, which I don't know if you have or not.
Just doing it, that's a hobby.
Yeah,
Yeah.
do you have like special cameras and stuff you're using, like the?
Well, like nowadays, like the cameras that are here, like the one I have, I think it cost 5,000.
Okay.
But I paid it off over time, and like I got the card for the company and paid it off through their like a credit card thing. But the cameras today, like if it's a 4K camera, but it's you light it right, like you light it in these techniques. YouTube, you go look on YouTube how to light a scene. Like I think in a way, not to make this too bigger than it is, but I think it's kind of like the world. There's a lot of bad things going on in the world because of technology, but then it's also opening up completely to where like it's pretty much getting to the point where like that movie I just made was made for like very little money, and it looks decent enough to where like you could probably potentially show it in some type of theater. And I think like it seems like everything's opening up to a point where it's almost like everyone can do it. I mean,
Well, I mean, there's a lot of and again, like I was telling my brother, I forgot exactly what you said your budget was, but I thought it was like 10,000 or something. And
it's because I paid the actors.
Really low. I mean, to say low budget, it kind of stigmatizes it, but
Yeah.
But and it kind of has a little bit of relation to the Sound of Freedom in the sense that
Yeah,
there's a child abuse going on.
that seems like another ether thing too, because like I didn't know about that movie either. But when I made it, so I was like, I wonder. It's just weird, like to that movie, so big, but also like it was.
You've never even seen it yet.
No, and it was also I mean,
there's no influence there.
and you could tell, I guess it's a difference. Mine's about like domestic child abuse, and that one's about like child sex. It's different, but it's just crazy that about the same time that it would happen. Like, like, I don't know. It's interesting because that movie was made in like 2018 and they held it back until now.
I've seen my second most popular video I ever did was just a mirror of a video that I put on my channel.
Yeah.
And it was this guy that was a movie producer that was talking about the Hollywood abuse and sex trafficking and things like that.
Yeah.
How there's a lot of tie-ins in relation, and there's a lot of pedophilia and all that.
Yeah.
And he was an insider that was talking about it. I don't really know how connected he was, but that video ended up. I think I had like 150,000 views or something.
Oh wow! Yeah.
And it got taken down by YouTube. and it was anything that I put out there that is related to sex trafficking or pedophilia,
Yeah.
it gets taken down by YouTube, and it's very disturbing to me.
Yeah.
That it's almost like YouTube is like has an agenda to, prevent that kind of stuff from getting out there.
Yeah.
Kind of the same way that the Sound of Freedom, they're fighting against it like crazy.
Yeah.
Trying to prevent it from getting out there. And I kind of wonder if you're going to be under the same kind of scrutiny because
I obviously I'm not 100% sure. Like, I think either way, if somehow the movie I made will like gain some traction, I'm sure there'll be a comparison. But if it's soon, like if because I'm almost done, polishing that movie from the one you saw. But yeah, I mean, I'm trying, like, if they went after that one too, like, then you would know there's like, because at this point it's just about child abuse. Like, like you got problem with kids, like, 'cause I feel like everyone could agree, and that's the weird thing about Sound of Freedom. It seems like something everybody could agree on. That's a well-made movie, and I haven't seen it, but it looks well-made, and also a subject matter that you can relate.
Can you imagine what you could do with $14 million?
Oh, I know.
That's what their budget was.
Yeah, like even like 100,000. I always thought about that. I was like, man, could pretty much make most of what I want. I don't know, but who knows what'll happen? But I don't. I guess I probably don't want to reveal how little I'm willing to, accept for the movie. But like, but I know, like, because like, I'm always gonna make them, even, and I feel like there must have been a benefit to making them so cheap. Like, even this movie, I didn't tell most of the people I was gonna pay them, but then because we made a Joker movie, like most of these actors, I made films with them before. The only ones I told I was gonna pay was the ones I needed to do on the casting, like the kids that are in the movie. But then I ended up, we ended up paying them just not that much, but enough for like the day or whatever. And I think that's what the budget is. So really, the movie is not made for anything. Like, if you were to take out that, like, just the people, like, there's not really any money on the screen, if that makes any sense, except for the cop cars, which is a guy helped me with that.
Oh yeah, I wondered about that too.
Yeah, he knows, he's a kind of a producer guy. He's one of the actors in the film too. He helped me get those, and he helped out a lot. Yeah, I guess I'm hoping, like, my hope, I don't know if it'll happen, but is that, like, you got a Sound of Freedom coming out, a movie that has a decent budget, but it's also a kind of a grassroots way they produced it. And then if something like this came out where it's like made with nothing, like, it would almost like show up Hollywood in a way, like like in a good way, like, hey, you guys, like, there's people want other stories too, or something. I don't know, like something like it can only be a positive, I think, like,
so there's this guy that I followed for years and years and years. He did like video editing and stuff for his church early on, but then he created King's Gate Media, and he created the Seed series, which he was working on.
Okay.
His name is Rob Skiba. So now Rob Skiba just passed away a couple of years ago from COVID or whatever, COVID related, I guess.
Yeah.
But I've been reading the book that his wife wrote, and it is the most gut wrenching stuff I've ever read, to be honest with you.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because it's kind of unrelated to what I'm saying, but he was basically, the protocols were the thing that killed him ultimately.
Okay.
So the point is, he started this series called Seed, and it was really just talking about kind of it's almost like science fiction type stuff. But he basically was integrating biblical concepts into it.
Okay.
And I would be so happy to somehow keep that type of thing alive, but again, I don't know, like you're saying, narrative, storylines or whatever. I don't really know the first thing of how freaking making movies.
Yeah.
But if I come up with an idea that I want to convey, I would love to figure out. Like you had told me that there's different footage that you can get from that.
Art list or art grid, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if there's tools that you can kind of show me, I actually, I learned a little bit about. Like I had another guy. His name is Jaron Capanella, also known as Jaranism.
Yeah.
His channel's pretty big, but he came out and explained to me how he kind of comes up with his cool presentations and stuff. And,
yeah.
And I think Fiverr, there's a bunch of people that you can hire through there.
Yeah.
And I forgot all the different ones, but
yeah,
man, I'm just like, I want to do like good productions. I just need to take the time to do them. And I actually I bought a decent, so it's like better than iMovie.
Yeah.
But it's Final Cut Pro.
Oh, that's what I use.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I don't know how to, I've always used it. So, yeah, I think it's good. That's how I made the movie.
I bought it and I never really did much with it.
Yeah. It's pretty simple. The Final Cut Pro X or whatever. It's kind of like iMovie. There's a lot more you can do, but
I need some formal training on it.
Yeah.
I think, 'cause, it's a little different than iMovie, so I was like more familiar with iMovie.
Yeah, and that's why I used to use.
I don't really know, like, so that documentary that you watched of mine was from iMovie.
Oh, okay.
And I don't know. I mean, so you made that movie through Final Cut Pro X?
Yeah.
What it's called? Okay.
Yeah.
I wonder if I have it. Final.
I think that's just like that's the basic one that they have now. Like I think that means 10 or I'm pretty sure. Like I don't know. It's just the latest one.
Oh, gotcha.
It's more simple because I used to have the one like 7 or something was like it seemed more complex, and then they streamlined it with the X ones, I think, and I could be wrong about that, but it seems a lot easier. Less buggy. Yeah, no, I'd like to help you out with that, and even show you those places, and then because I mean, with that kind of stuff, you just need a mic, and then you have the footage, and also
I have this one right here. Let me pull it over here. Oh, sorry, I'm plugged in, I guess. So this is my Yeti. So I haven't been using it because it started to get a little staticky. And I never figured out what was wrong with it.
I use for that Bible as a Trilogy one. I just use this thing. It's like I think these are $90. It's called a Zoom, but there's probably better ones. But I
want a professional grade mic, to be honest with you.
I think this is a good one, or you might even be able to get one that doesn't tap directly in the computer. You have to upload it, but you can probably get some that go right into it. And you can edit it,
Well, hey, so considering that we're kind of a little bit off of our original topic, I mean, for those who are still listening up to this point, even on the playback, just appreciate that you are here to listen. And, I guess we can wrap it up here. Okay. And then if you want to continue to talk, we can go offline. But if you're okay with that. But I just want to wrap up the video because someone might look at it and see 3 hours on there. They just won't even watch it because it's too long. But anyways, Alek, you're a good guy. I appreciate you coming on. I appreciate you being like my new friend, and
likewise.
I think that it would be cool if we can do future endeavors together if possible.
I have a lot of time, so.
So in unpacking this stuff, I feel like it's a venture that I think we need to bounce ideas off of each other,
Yeah.
so that we can kind of get in deeper. Even come up with like maybe a series, because we've been kind of discussing this on a surface level, but I think that
Yeah.
there's got to be something that we can dig into a little deeper.
Yeah.
I guess.
I'm trying to figure out a way to do the. I just can't. Because the movie idea that like the thing where like it's acting out through the films, like we don't have to do that, but like I just want to someday I gotta show that to someone and say, is that crazy or or is that possible that there's one mind behind all art kind of thing? But I don't know. But that's just one thing. I think that might take years to figure that one out. But
Yeah.
um, but yeah, I'm definitely game to do more of this stuff. Even like just what we're doing now.
Yeah. I mean, we'll talk more, but
Yeah.
I'm gonna end the stream
Okay.
here, and then we can just keep talking after.
Yeah.
So thanks everybody, and if you have any thoughts or concerns or feedback, just leave your comments, and I'll try to give feedback or whatever. But all right, have a good one. All right, just hang out,
Thank you.
Alec.
Okay.
All right, bye everybody.